Ambassador G1 Park stood in the observation deck of Station Whisper, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic display that showed the Galactic Cooperative Assembly in session. The station hung in deep space, hidden behind layers of stealth technology that humanity had perfected over 2 centuries. On the display, representatives from 47 species debated matters of trade and security, their voices translated into a cacophony of languages. None of them knew they were being watched. G1 had spent 15 years studying these creatures. She knew their habits, their customs, their fears. The tall, mantis-like Thessians, who believed themselves the pinnacle of civilization. The aquatic Seln who spoke in bubbles and pressure waves. The energy-based Korthons who existed in specially contained suits. All of them members of the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. All of them united by one common belief. 200 years had passed since the banishment. G1 had learned the story as a child, as every human child did. The history lessons were careful and detailed. In 2187, humanity had finally achieved faster-than-light travel and burst onto the galactic stage with enthusiasm and hope. They had discovered the cooperative and applied for membership, eager to join the community of advanced species. For 23 years, humanity had been probationary members. They learned alien languages, established embassies, and tried to prove themselves worthy. Then came the incident at New Harmony, a human colony world on the edge of explored space. Raiders had attacked the settlement, killing hundreds of colonists. The human defenders fought back with everything they had. They won, but among the dead raiders were members of the Vryn species, a cooperative member world. The cooperative had been horrified. They called humanity savage. They said humans were too violent, too emotional, too unpredictable. The fact that the Vryn had been the aggressors did not matter. The fact that human colonists had died meant nothing. What mattered was that humans had killed members of a cooperative species. The verdict came swiftly. Humanity was expelled and forbidden from leaving their designated territory. Earth, Luna, Mars, and 12 isolated colony worlds. That was humanity's prison. G1's communicator buzzed softly. She touched it, and a scaled face appeared on her wrist display. Krenzoth looked nervous, his tongue flicking out to taste the air as his species did when anxious. "Ambassador Park," he said in careful English. "I have arrived at the meeting point. Is it safe? Come to Docking Bay 7, G1 replied. We are alone." She made her way through the station's corridors, passing other humans at their posts. Station Whisper was one of 73 hidden bases that humanity had constructed in the 2 centuries since the banishment. Each station was a masterpiece of stealth technology, invisible to cooperative sensors, powered by reactors that produced no detectable signature. The stations formed a network across the galaxy, allowing humanity to watch, to listen, and to act without being seen. Krenzoth waited in the docking bay, his shuttle already secured. He was a Krell, a reptilian species with green scales and golden eyes. His people had evolved on a high-gravity world, making them strong but slow by cooperative standards. The cooperative had evaluated the Krell 40 years ago and declared them too primitive for membership consideration. The rejection had devastated the Krell, who had spent generations preparing for contact. "Thank you for meeting with me," Krenzoth said, bowing in the human fashion he had learned. "My people are grateful for everything humanity has done." G1 smiled. "Walk with me, friend." They moved to a conference room, where a holographic star map dominated the center. G1 gestured, and the map came to life, showing not the official territories of the cooperative, but something else entirely. A web of connections spanning hundreds of systems. Each node represented a species, a world, a civilization that the cooperative had rejected or ignored. "This is the Shadow Council," G1 said quietly. 89 member species, 42 worlds, 316 stations and facilities, a population of 67 billion sentient beings. Krenzoth stared at the map, his eyes wide. "I knew humanity had helped many of us, but this This is incredible. When the cooperative banished us, they thought we would hide in our corner of space and slowly fade away. Ji-won continued. They were wrong. We are humans. We do not accept defeat. We adapt. She touched the map, zooming in on various systems. We found the Vral, crystalline beings that the cooperative said were not truly alive. We learned to communicate with them and discovered they are poets and philosophers. We found the Theskin, whom the cooperative called pirates. We learned they were refugees whose worlds had been destroyed. We found the Hirathi, insectoids so different that the cooperative said meaningful contact was impossible. We learned their language, and now they are among our closest allies. The cooperative dismissed all of us, Krenzoth said softly. But humanity saw our worth. We saw ourselves, G1 corrected. Every rejected species reminded us of our own banishment. So, we made a choice. If the cooperative would not accept us, we would build something better. We would find everyone they left behind and offer them what we wished someone had offered us. Friendship without conditions, trade without exploitation, technology sharing without strings attached. Krenzoth touched the map with one clawed hand. My people owe you our future. The technology you shared, the trade routes you opened, the education you provided. We have advanced more in 20 years with humanity than in 2 centuries alone. Before Ji-won could respond, an alert flashed on her communicator. She read it quickly, and her expression hardened. What is wrong? Krenzoth asked. The cooperative enforcement fleet is mobilizing, Ji-won said. They are heading for Theta Karina. Krenzoth's scales rippled with alarm. But Theta Karina is a Shadow Council world. 4 of our member species have colonies there. The cooperative does not know that, Ji-won said grimly. They believe it is an unauthorized settlement in disputed territory. They intend to destroy it as a warning to others. She pulled up another display. This one showing ship movements. The cooperative fleet was massive. Over 40 warships. More than enough to reduce Theta Karina to ash. What will we do? Krenzoth asked. Ji-won looked at the map. At the web of connections humanity had built in secret. For 200 years, they had worked in the shadows. They had built their network carefully, patiently, never revealing themselves. But that time was ending. We defend what we have built, she said. Send the signal. Activate all Shadow Council defense protocols, and tell Captain Seo to prepare his ship. The cooperative is about to learn that the shadows have been watching them all along. Krenzoth bowed again. The Krell will answer the call, as will the others. After he left, Ji-won stood alone before the star map. 2 centuries of careful work, of patient building, of silent preparation. It had all been leading to this moment. The cooperative thought humanity was hiding in exile. They had no idea that humanity had been building an empire in the places they never bothered to look. She touched her communicator. This is Ambassador Park to all stations. Initiate Shadow Protocol. It is time to show the galaxy what we have become. Across the network, humanity's hidden stations came alive. Messages flew to 89 different species. Ships began to move. The galaxy was about to change, and the cooperative had no idea what was coming. Captain Minjun Seo reviewed the sensor data from his command chair, a slight smile on his face. To anyone scanning his ship, the Shadow Runner appeared to be exactly what it claimed. A worn-out cargo freighter limping between systems on barely functional drives. The hull was scarred and patched. The energy signature was weak and irregular. Even the identification transponder broadcast outdated codes from a decommissioned mining company. It was all a lie. Beneath the disguised exterior, the Shadow Runner was one of humanity's most advanced vessels. Her engines could accelerate faster than any cooperative warship. Her weapons were hidden behind hull panels that could drop away in seconds. Her sensors could detect and analyze targets across a star system. and her crew of 40 humans were among the best humanity had trained. "Jump coordinates confirmed, Captain," said Lieutenant Park Soo-jin from the navigation station. 3 jumps to Theta Carinae through Shadow Council space. "Execute," Min-jun ordered, "and send greetings to each station we pass. Let them know we are coming." The ship shuddered as it entered jump space, that strange realm between dimensions where faster-than-light travel became possible. Min-jun had made this journey hundreds of times, following routes that only Shadow Council ships knew. These were not the major jump lanes that the Cooperative used and monitored. These were hidden paths, discovered by human exploration and shared only with trusted allies. The first jump brought them to Waystation 17, one of the relay points humanity had built. The station was small and hidden inside an asteroid field, but it served as a critical communication hub. As they passed, Min-jun recorded a message. "Captain CO to Waystation 17. Shadow Protocol is active. Prepare for possible cooperative incursion. Forward all intelligence to command." The second jump took them through Vral space. Min-jun looked at the display showing the crystalline structures that floated in the void. The Vral built their homes in space itself, growing them from silicon and carbon in patterns of impossible beauty. The Cooperative had scanned these structures 2 centuries ago and declared them natural formations, insisting the Vral could not be truly sentient. Humanity had known better. Dr. Sarah Chen had spent 5 years learning to communicate with the Vral, discovering that they experienced time differently than biological species. What seemed like slow, random movements to others were actually complex conversations happening over weeks and months. The Vral had been overjoyed to finally be understood. In return, they had shared their knowledge of materials science, teaching humanity how to grow crystals with specific properties. That technology now protected every human station. "Receiving Vral acknowledgement," said Communications Officer James Wright. "They say, and I am translating, the song of humanity calls, and we harmonize our response. Protection flows like crystal growing, inevitable and strong." Min-jun nodded. "Thank them. Tell them their harmony is appreciated." The third jump brought them to the edge of Thescan territory. The Thescan were wolf-like beings who traveled in clan ships, never settling permanently on any world. The Cooperative had labeled them pirates because they salvaged abandoned ships and raided automated facilities. They had never bothered to learn that the Thescan were refugees whose home system had been consumed by their dying star 300 years ago. They lived as nomads, not from choice, but from necessity. Humanity had found them 50 years ago, starving and desperate. Instead of attacking them as the Cooperative recommended, human diplomats had offered food, medicine, and friendship. They had helped the Thescan establish bases and repair their ships. They had shared jump coordinates to systems rich in resources. The Thescan clans had pledged themselves to the Shadow Council with a loyalty that was absolute. 3 Thescan clan ships moved to escort the Shadow Runner. Their hulls were decorated with painted symbols, each one representing a battle or achievement. Min-jun recognized several symbols that included human figures. The Thescan never forgot their friends. "Clan leader Vorash sends greetings," Wright reported. "He says his claws are sharp and his pack is ready. They will fight beside us. Tell him we are honored," Min-jun replied. "And ask if they have seen any Cooperative scouts." The answer came quickly. Negative on Cooperative presence. But their long-range sensors detected ship movements in Cooperative space. "A fleet is gathering," Min-jun frowned. The Cooperative moved slowly, requiring committee approvals and formal declarations before taking action. If they were gathering a fleet this quickly, they were more alarmed than expected. The final jump brought them to Theta Carinae, and Min-jun felt his breath catch at the sight. The system had been barren when humanity first found it 20 years ago. Now, 3 rocky planets had been transformed. Domed settlements covered their surfaces. Orbital stations hung in space. Ships moved between the worlds, carrying cargo and passengers. This was not a human colony. This was a true Shadow Council achievement. The settlements were shared between 4 species. The Krell, who had built the deep underground facilities with their strength and engineering skill. The Hyrathi, whose insectoid workers had constructed the surface domes with incredible speed. The Seln, whose water-based biology had been accommodated in special habitats. And the Yun, a timid species of small, furry beings who had been enslaved by pirates until humanity had freed them. "Captain, we are being hailed by the defense coordinator," Wright said. A Krell face appeared on the screen. "Captain CO, we are grateful for your arrival. We have detected the cooperative fleet. They will reach us in 2 days." "How many ships?" Minjun asked. 43. "Mostly cruisers and destroyers. They are broadcasting demands for our surrender." Minjun stood and walked to the holographic display. "Show me the system defenses." The display lit up with hundreds of markers. Some were visible stations and satellites, but most were hidden assets. Defense platforms, disguised as asteroids. Missile pods concealed in debris fields. Sensor networks that could track every ship. And beneath the surface of all 3 planets, weapon systems that could strike targets in orbit. Humanity had learned from their banishment. They had studied every military conflict in cooperative history. They had analyzed every tactic, every strategy, every weakness. And they had prepared for the day when they would have to defend what they had built. "The cooperative thinks this is a primitive settlement," Minjun said. "They expect us to panic and flee. Instead, we are going to give them a lesson in underestimating the supposedly inferior species." He turned to his crew. "Send a message to all Shadow Council ships in range. Tell them we are activating the defense grid. And open a channel to Ambassador Park. She needs to know the fight is about to begin." As his crew worked, Minjun looked at the peaceful settlements below. 4 species living together, sharing technology and resources, building a future that the cooperative had told them was impossible. This was what humanity had created. This was what they would protect. "All systems are ready, Captain," Sujin reported. "The defense grid is active. Our allies are moving into position." Minjun sat back in his command chair. "Then we wait. Let the cooperative come. Let them see what happens when they threaten the Shadow Council. For 200 years, we have worked in secret. But today, the shadows will fight back." On the display, markers began to appear as more ships arrived. Thescan clan vessels, Vral crystal ships, Krell heavy cruisers, Hirathi carriers, and more human ships, all disguised as harmless freighters. The cooperative fleet was larger, but they were walking into a trap. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson. Humanity had not been hiding in exile. They had been building an army. High Arbiter Thessian stood before the holographic display in the command ship's strategic center, his mantis-like body perfectly still as he processed the incoming data. His kind were known for their logical thinking and cold analysis. Emotions were considered inefficient, and Thessian prided himself on never allowing feelings to cloud his judgment. But what he was seeing troubled him in ways he could not easily dismiss. "Report," he commanded, his mandibles clicking. Commander Velis, a Seln officer encased in her water-filled suit, gestured at the display. "The Theta Karina settlement is refusing to comply with evacuation orders. They claim the system is legally occupied and under protective jurisdiction." "Protective jurisdiction?" Thessian repeated. "By whose authority?" "That system is in disputed territory. No recognized government has claim to it." "They did not specify," Velis said. "But our scouts report that the settlement is more developed than expected. Multiple species are present. The infrastructure suggests decades of development, not the few years we believed." Thessian moved closer to the display, studying the data. This was supposed to be a simple enforcement action. The cooperative had detected unauthorized settlement activity in Theta Carinae 6 months ago. Standard procedure was to issue warnings, then forcibly evacuate if the warnings were ignored. Such actions were rare, but necessary to maintain order. The fleet had been prepared for resistance from pirates or independent colonists. What they had not expected was organization. "Begin the operation," Thessian ordered. "Disable their communications and approach the primary planet. Prepare boarding teams." 2. The fleet moved forward, 43 ships arranged in precise formation. Thessian watched with satisfaction. This was how civilization maintained itself, through order and discipline. The species living in Theta Carinae were probably refugees or outcasts, desperate beings trying to build something in the shadows. He almost felt pity for them. The first hint that something was wrong came when the fleet crossed into the system's asteroid belt. "Contact!" a sensor officer shouted. "Multiple targets activating." They were hidden in the asteroids, the display filled with red markers as dozens of defense platforms came online. Energy weapons fired, striking the cooperative ships with precision. Shields flared and held. But the intensity of the attack was shocking. "Return fire," Thessian commanded. "Destroy those platforms." But before his ships could respond, a new threat emerged. Missiles launched from concealed positions throughout the system. Hundreds of them, following complex flight patterns that confused the targeting systems. Several found their marks, impacting shields and causing damage. "This is not a refugee settlement," Velis said, her voice tight with alarm. Thessian's mind raced through possibilities. Rogue cooperative members? Weapons dealers? Nothing made sense. The species living here were supposed to be primitive. Dismissed by the cooperative as unready for advanced civilization. "Advance carefully," he ordered. "I want full scans of every installation. Find out who supplied them with this technology." The fleet continued forward, destroying the defense platforms one by one. But each time they eliminated a threat, another appeared. The defenders were using tactics that suggested professional military training. They hit and ran, never holding position long enough to be destroyed. They targeted weak points in the cooperative formation with disturbing accuracy. After 6 hours of fighting, the fleet reached orbit around the primary planet. Thessian expected to see panic below, evacuation ships fleeing the surface. Instead, he saw order. The settlements continued their normal operations. No one was running. "Ground installations are targeting us," a weapons officer reported. "They have surface-to-orbit cannons. Military grade." "How is this possible?" Thessian demanded. "Our intelligence said this was a minor settlement. Who has been supporting them?" His answer came in an unexpected form. One of the cooperative boarding teams managed to capture a defender during a raid on a small station. The prisoner was brought before Thessian via video link. It was a Krell, one of the reptilian species the cooperative had evaluated as too primitive 40 years ago. "You are in violation of cooperative space regulations," Thessian told the prisoner. "Who supplied you with these weapons? Who organized your defense?" The Krell looked directly at the camera, his golden eyes steady. "We are members of the Shadow Council. This system is under our protection. You are the ones violating our sovereignty." "Shadow Council?" Thessian repeated. "I have never heard of such an organization." "Of course not," the Krell said. "That was the intention. But you have forced us to reveal ourselves. You should leave while you still can." Thessian felt something he rarely experienced. Confusion. "You are a primitive species. Your people barely have spaceflight. You cannot threaten this fleet." The Krell made a sound that might have been laughter. "Primitive? Is that what you still believe? Then you understand nothing. The cooperative dismissed us. They dismissed many others. But someone found us. Someone who did not judge us by your standards. Someone who offered us knowledge, trade, and friendship. We have grown far beyond what you imagine." "Anderly? Frumlein? Who?" Thessian demanded. "Tell me who organized this." But the Krell simply smiled and said nothing more. Thessian ordered his analysts to investigate. What they discovered sent cold logic spiraling into something approaching fear. The analysts traced economic patterns, technology transfers, and communication networks. They found evidence of coordinated activity spanning decades, 89 different species. Most of them rejected or ignored by the cooperative, all showing signs of rapid advancement and cooperation. And at the center of every pattern, every anomaly, every unexplained development, was one common factor: humans. That is impossible, Thessian said when the report was presented. Humanity was banished 200 years ago. They were confined to their system. We have monitored them, apparently not closely enough, Velis said quietly. According to this data, human ships have been traveling throughout the galaxy for the entire 2 centuries. They have contacted every species we rejected. They have been building this network the entire time. Thessian stared at the display showing the web of connections. It was vast, spanning hundreds of systems. The humans had created an entire parallel civilization, hidden from cooperative view. They were supposed to fade away, he said, more to himself than to his officers. We banished them for being dangerous. We separated them from civilized society. They should have remained isolated and eventually become irrelevant. Instead, they became the center of a new alliance, Velis observed, one that includes all the species we dismissed as unworthy. Thessian felt the weight of the implications. The cooperative's authority rested on being the pinnacle of galactic civilization. They determined which species were ready for advancement and which were not. They set the standards. They controlled the networks of trade and diplomacy, but humanity had proven that those rejected species could thrive without cooperative approval. Worse, they had proven that the cooperative's judgments might be wrong. This cannot be allowed to continue, Thessian said, his voice hard. If word spreads that these primitive species have formed a functional alliance, other worlds will question our authority. The entire structure of galactic civilization could collapse. He turned to his communications officer. Send a message to the Cooperative Assembly. Tell them we need immediate reinforcements. We are not just suppressing a settlement. We are facing an organized rival power. What should we do about Theta Karina? Velis asked. Thessian looked at the planet below, at the settlements filled with species the cooperative had deemed inferior. We make an example. We show the galaxy what happens to those who defy cooperative authority. Prepare for orbital bombardment. That will kill millions, Velis protested. Many are non-combatants. They chose to ally with humanity, Thessian said coldly. They chose to reject cooperative guidance. The consequences are their own responsibility. As he gave the order, Thessian pushed aside the small voice of doubt in his mind. The cooperative had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Their system worked. These species, hiding in the shadows with their human allies, could not be allowed to undermine everything civilization had built. But deep down, beneath his logical exterior, Thessian wondered if perhaps the cooperative had made a terrible mistake 200 years ago. They had banished humanity for being dangerous and unpredictable. Instead of containing the threat, they had given humanity 2 centuries to prepare. And now that preparation was about to be tested in ways the cooperative could not predict. Admiral Hee-Jin Kim watched the cooperative fleet regroup in orbit around Theta Karina and felt a cold anger settle into her bones. The enemy ships were positioning themselves for bombardment. They intended to destroy everything below, to kill millions of beings whose only crime was building a better life. Status of the Shadow Fleet? She asked. Arriving now, her tactical officer replied. 317 ships from 89 species. They are taking positions around the system perimeter. Hee-Jin pulled up the display and felt a surge of pride. Every species humanity had helped over the past 2 centuries was answering the call. Krell, heavy cruisers with their powerful weapons. Thescan clan ships moving in wolfpack formations. Vral crystal vessels that bent light around them. Hirathi carriers filled with fighter craft. And among them, the human fleet, each ship still disguised but ready to drop their camouflage. Open a channel to all Shadow Council ships, Hee-Jin ordered. And make sure the cooperative can hear it too. The channel activated, and Hee-Jin took a breath. For 200 years, humanity had hidden. They had worked in silence, building their network without drawing attention. But that time was over. The cooperative had forced their hand. And now humanity would speak with the voice of 89 allied species behind them. This is Admiral Hae-Jin Kim of the human vessel Unity. I am transmitting to all ships in this system and broadcasting on all galactic frequencies. The cooperative fleet currently in orbit around Theta Karina has one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. You have 60 seconds to begin retreat procedures. On the cooperative command ship, she knew High Arbiter Thessian would be shocked. The humans were supposed to be confined to their home system. Yet here was a human admiral commanding a fleet in the middle of cooperative space. The channel remained silent for a moment. Then Thessian's voice came through, cold and precise. This is High Arbiter Thessian of the Galactic Cooperative. You are in violation of your banishment terms. The cooperative has authority over this space. We will not be threatened by criminals and outlaws. Hae-Jin smiled without humor. Criminals? Outlaws? High Arbiter. You are addressing representatives of 89 civilizations. We call ourselves the Shadow Council, and we have been operating successfully for 2 centuries, while you remained ignorant of our existence. We are not here to threaten you. We are here to protect our member worlds. Theta Karina is under Shadow Council protection. Your attack on it is an act of war against all of us. The species living there were deemed unready for civilization, Thessian replied. They do not have the authority to form alliances or claim territory. Unready by whose judgment? Hae-Jin asked. Yours? The cooperatives? Who gave you the right to decide which species deserve advancement and which do not? She gestured, and data began streaming across all channels. I am now broadcasting to the entire galaxy. What you are seeing is a complete record of Shadow Council achievements over the past 200 years. Economic growth rates, technology advancement, peaceful conflict resolution, cultural exchange, educational programs, medical breakthroughs, all accomplished by the species you dismissed as primitive or inferior. The data was damning. It showed species the cooperative had ignored flourishing under Shadow Council cooperation. It showed worlds devastated by cooperative policies recovering with Shadow Council aid. It showed technology and knowledge flowing freely among species that the cooperative claimed could never work together. The Vral, whom you declared non-sentient, have taught us materials science that revolutionized our construction techniques. The Thescan, whom you called pirates, have shared navigation methods that improved our jump accuracy by 40%. The Krell, deemed too primitive, have engineering knowledge that allowed us to build stations in environments you consider impossible. Every species you rejected has contributed something valuable. Hae-Jin paused, letting the information sink in. She knew the broadcast was reaching every cooperative member world. Citizens were seeing evidence that contradicted everything their government had told them about the lesser species. But this is about more than just proving you wrong, she continued. This is about the fundamental philosophy of the cooperative. You believe civilization should be hierarchical, with the advanced species guiding the primitive ones. You believe in one standard of development, one path to progress. Anyone who does not fit your model is rejected. She brought up another display, this one showing cooperative failures. Species that had been accepted as members, but then exploited for resources. Worlds that had been stripped of independence in exchange for technology. Conflicts that the cooperative had ignored because the participants were considered unimportant. We offer a different model. In the Shadow Council, every species is valued for what they are, not judged for what they are not. We share knowledge freely, without demanding conformity. We protect each other, not because we are superior, but because we are equals. Thessian's voice came back, sharp with anger. You are manipulating data to make the cooperative look unjust. We have maintained galactic peace for millennia. Your alliance is a rebellion against the natural order of civilization. Natural order? Heejin laughed bitterly. High Arbiter, you banished humanity because we defended ourselves against attackers. You called us too violent, too unpredictable. But in the 200 years since then, has the cooperative ever asked why we fought? Has it ever wondered if your own member species might have been at fault? She brought up the records of the New Harmony incident, the attack that had led to humanity's banishment. The Vryn raiders who attacked our colony were slavers. They had raided 6 other worlds before ours. We have the evidence. But when we killed them in self-defense, you did not investigate. You did not ask questions. You simply decided that humans were dangerous and expelled us. That incident was thoroughly reviewed, Thessian protested, by a committee that had already decided humans were too emotional to be civilized. Heejin shot back. You looked for reasons to reject us, and you found them, just as you have found reasons to reject every other species that does not fit your narrow definition of acceptable. She stood, her image now filling the communication screens of every ship in the system. Here is the truth that the cooperative does not want to admit. You are not the pinnacle of civilization. You are one model among many, and your insistence that everyone must follow your path or be rejected has left dozens of species struggling in isolation. We found those species. We helped them, and now they are thriving. Around the system, the Shadow Council fleet moved into attack positions. They did not fire, but their weapons were charged and ready. Heijin was gambling that the cooperative would hesitate when faced with overwhelming force. You have a choice, High Arbiter, she said. You can attack and prove everything we have said about the cooperative being violent and oppressive. You will win this battle, perhaps, but you will lose the moral authority you claim to possess. Or you can withdraw and accept that the galaxy is changing. The species you rejected are not going to disappear. We are here, we are organized, and we will defend ourselves. The channel fell silent. Heijin knew Thessian was calculating odds, consulting with his officers, perhaps communicating with the cooperative assembly. The next few minutes would determine whether this ended in negotiation or bloodshed. Her tactical officer leaned close. Admiral, if they attack, can we win? Heijin looked at the display showing both fleets. The cooperative had more firepower, better shields, more advanced weapons, but the Shadow Council had numbers, position, and the advantage of defending their home. It would be a brutal fight, with casualties on both sides. We can make it too expensive for them to continue, she said quietly. That might be enough. The channel crackled back to life. Thessian's voice was strained. This conversation is not over. The cooperative assembly will need to discuss these accusations, but I am ordering my fleet to withdraw from Theta Karina. For now. Heijin felt relief flood through her, though she kept her expression neutral. A wise decision, High Arbiter. We will be waiting when you are ready to talk. But understand this. The Shadow Council is not going away. We are part of the galaxy now, whether the cooperative acknowledges us or not. As the cooperative fleet began to pull back, Heijin allowed herself a small smile. They had won the first confrontation without firing a shot. But she knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to change in ways neither the cooperative nor the Shadow Council could fully predict. 3 months after the confrontation at Theta Karina, Ambassador G1 Park stood in a conference hall that had never existed before. The structure floated in neutral space, equidistant from cooperative and Shadow Council territories. It had been built specifically for these negotiations, with sections designed to accommodate the environmental needs of dozens of different species. The hall was filling with representatives from across the galaxy. Cooperative member species sent their diplomats, many looking uncomfortable or uncertain. Shadow Council members arrived with quiet confidence, knowing they had already won the most important battle. They had proven their existence and their capability. But what surprised G1 most was the third group. 17 cooperative member species had broken ranks, and were attending independently, not as part of the cooperative delegation. They wanted to hear what the Shadow Council had to offer. Another 6 species had formally requested dialogue about possible membership. The galactic order that had stood for millennia was fracturing. "Quite a turnout," said Dr. Sung-Ho Choi, settling into the seat beside her. As humanity's lead cultural specialist, he had spent the past 3 months preparing for these negotiations. His expertise in alien psychology and customs had been critical in managing the complex diplomatic web. "The cooperative is terrified," G1 replied quietly. "They built their entire authority on being the only legitimate path to advancement. We have shattered that illusion." "Not without cost," Sung-Ho reminded her. "There have been protests on 20 cooperative worlds. Some species are angry that they were kept from joining the Shadow Council. Others fear that we are dividing the galaxy and will cause conflict." G1 nodded. The revelation of the Shadow Council had sent shockwaves through every civilization. On some worlds, it was celebrated as proof that the cooperative's judgments were flawed. On others, it was seen as a dangerous rebellion that threatened stability. The truth was probably somewhere between those extremes. The hall's lights dimmed, signaling the start of the conference. High Arbiter Theshan entered from one side, his mantis-like form moving with careful dignity. He was flanked by representatives from the cooperative's founding species, all of them wearing expressions of stern disapproval. From the other side, Admiral Hae-Jin Kim led the Shadow Council delegation. Behind her came representatives from the Krell, the Thescan, the Vral, the Harathi, and dozens of others. No species was given prominence over another. They walked together as equals. And in the center, G1 and Sung-Ho represented humanity's diplomatic corps. They had debated long and hard about whether humans should take a visible role. In the end, they decided that hiding would serve no purpose. The galaxy knew humanity had built the Shadow Council. Pretending otherwise would be dishonest. Thessian spoke first, his voice carrying across the hall through translation systems. "We are here because the Galactic Cooperative has been confronted with an unprecedented situation. A parallel alliance has formed without our knowledge or consent, led by a species we banished for their inability to conform to civilized standards." G1 noticed he avoided saying humanity directly, as if speaking the name would give them too much legitimacy. "The cooperative has reviewed the evidence presented at Theta Karina," Thessian continued. "We acknowledge that some of our evaluations of species may have been premature. We acknowledge that the Shadow Council has achieved a level of organization that was unexpected. However, we cannot accept that this Shadow Alliance should continue to operate independently. It threatens the stability that the cooperative has maintained for millennia." Admiral Kim stood to respond. "The Shadow Council has no interest in threatening cooperative stability. We simply refuse to accept cooperative dominance over species who did not choose it. Every member of our alliance joined voluntarily. Every species chose to work with us after the cooperative rejected them. We built something new because the existing system failed us." "The existing system has maintained peace," Thessian argued. "Before the cooperative, the galaxy was in constant conflict. We brought order and civilization. You brought one type of order," Sung-Ho interjected, rising from his seat. "Based on one set of cultural values. Species that fit your model were accepted. Those that did not were cast aside. The Shadow Council proves that other forms of civilization are possible." A representative from the Seln species, a cooperative member, spoke up. "But how can we trust that your alliance will not become aggressive? You have hidden your activities for 2 centuries. You have built weapons and fleets in secret. This does not suggest peaceful intentions." G1 stood, and the hall fell quiet. She had been chosen to deliver humanity's core message, the explanation that would define how the galaxy saw them going forward. "We hid because we had no choice," she said simply. "The cooperative banished us. They told us we were too dangerous, too unpredictable to be part of civilized society. We accepted that judgment, not because we agreed with it, but because we had no power to challenge it. She walked to the center of the hall, her voice carrying to every corner. But we are humans. We do not give up. We adapt. When the cooperative closed its doors to us, we looked for other doors. We found species suffering in isolation, rejected for being different. We found civilizations struggling without support, dismissed as primitive, and we asked ourselves a question. What if the cooperative is wrong? What if these species are not inferior, just different? So, we reached out. We learned languages that the cooperative said were too complex. We built relationships with beings that the cooperative said could not be understood. We shared technology freely, without demanding conformity in return. And slowly, over 200 years, we built something that the cooperative said was impossible. A true alliance of equals. A Krell representative stood, his scales gleaming under the hall lights. Humanity gave my people hope when we had none. The cooperative evaluated us and said we were too slow, too simple to advance. But humanity saw our strength, our dedication, our desire to learn. They gave us knowledge, yes, but more importantly, they gave us respect. Another voice joined in, this time from a Vral representative whose crystalline form pulsed with light. The cooperative said, "We were not truly alive. Humanity spent 5 years learning to communicate with us. They understood that intelligence takes many forms. One by one, species rose to speak. The Thescan, who had been called pirates. The Hirathi, deemed too alien. The Yun, dismissed as too timid. Each had a story of rejection by the cooperative and acceptance by humanity. Thessian listened to them all, his expression unreadable. When the testimonials finished, he spoke carefully. Perhaps we made errors in judgment. Perhaps some species were dismissed too quickly. But that does not justify the creation of a rival power structure. The galaxy cannot function with two competing alliances. Then perhaps it should not be a competition, G1 said. We do not seek to replace the cooperative. We seek to complement it. Let both alliances exist. Let species choose which they wish to join, or whether they wish to join both. Let the galaxy have multiple paths to advancement, instead of only one. That would be chaos, a cooperative member protested. Without a single authority, conflicts will arise. Trade disputes, border disagreements, wars. We have had 2 centuries without war among Shadow Council members, Admiral Kim pointed out. We resolve disputes through negotiation and mediation, not because we have a supreme authority, but because we respect each other. Sung Ho stepped forward again. What we are proposing is not chaos, but diversity. The cooperative can continue serving species that fit its model. The Shadow Council will serve those who need a different approach. And perhaps, over time, we can learn from each other. The debate continued for hours, with representatives from dozens of species offering perspectives. Some cooperative members were hostile to any change. Others were curious about the Shadow Council's methods. Some Shadow Council species wanted nothing to do with the cooperative. Others hoped for eventual reconciliation. But gradually, a consensus began to form. The galaxy had changed. The revelation of the Shadow Council meant that the old system could not continue unchanged. Some adjustment was necessary. It took another month of negotiations to create the framework. The Accord of Twin Stars, they called it. The cooperative and the Shadow Council would remain independent, but would establish formal diplomatic relations. Neither would claim supreme authority. Species could join either, both, or neither. Disputes between members of different alliances would be mediated by a neutral court. It was not perfect. There were compromises that satisfied no one completely. But it was a beginning. On the day the accord was signed, G1 stood with Thessian in a private meeting room. The High Arbiter looked tired, older than he had 3 months ago. You have changed the galaxy, he said quietly. I am not certain. It is for the better. Anonymity. Neither am I, G1 admitted. But the old system was breaking. Too many species were being left behind. This, at least, gives them options. Why did humanity do this? Thessian asked. You could have remained hidden. You could have built your own empire in the shadows. Why reach out to other rejected species? Why share everything you gained? Why? G1 thought about the question. It was one she had asked herself many times over the years. Because we remembered how it felt to be rejected, she said finally. We remembered the pain of being told we were not good enough, not civilized enough, not worthy. We did not want others to feel that pain, so we built something where everyone could belong. She turned to look at Thessian directly. Humanity's revenge was not conquest. It was proving that the species you dismissed could build something beautiful together. We did not need your approval to succeed. We just needed each other. Thessian was silent for a long moment. Then he inclined his head slightly. Perhaps we will learn from this. Perhaps the cooperative can change. I hope so, G1 said. Because the galaxy is large enough for many different kinds of civilization. We do not all have to be the same. Months later, G1 sat in the observation deck of Station Whisper, watching the same display she had observed years ago. But now, 2 new species were signing a direct treaty with each other. A cooperative member and a Shadow Council member working together without either alliance's direct involvement. It was exactly what humanity had hoped for. Captain Minjun Seo joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. Ambassador Park. Celebrating? Observing, she corrected. We still have much work to do. But we changed things, Minjun said. The galaxy will never be the same. G1 smiled slightly. That was always the goal. Humanity was banished from the stars. So we built our own constellation in the shadows. And now those shadows have become a place where anyone can find light. Below them, across the galaxy, millions of beings from hundreds of species continued the work that humanity had started. Building bridges, sharing knowledge, creating something new. The cooperative still existed, but it was no longer the only path. The Shadow Council had proven that civilization could take many forms, and humanity, the species that had been cast out for being too different, had become the quiet architects of a galaxy where difference was no longer a reason for rejection. They did not rule this new order. They did not need to. They had already achieved something far more lasting. They had shown the galaxy a better way.